This evening, Radio Cornwall is pleased to be premiering Made in Cornwall, the latest play by Nigel Pascoe, writer and esteemed criminal advocate. To be performed for you live by members of Lyndhurst Drama Society and Minstead Players.
In the Roseland Peninsula, Cornwall, lies the village of Verrion. John Betjeman described it as a mild tropic garden, a place to find peace and hope for a new start in life. It is January 2015, and Simon Fraser finds himself ready to begin a new journey.
I couldn't stand the crying. I did what you're supposed to do. I checked her, I cuddled her. I held her in my arms for ages, but she just wouldn't stop. That's why it happened. Afterwards, I just wanted to kill myself. It had been all my fault. But the doctors helped me. If they hadn't, I would still be locked away. Later, many years later, I began to understand. I'd been really ill at the time, and that's why I was sent to hospital, not to prison. Now I must begin again somehow, and everyone else is gone.
Late autumn 2015, Melonsey Mill, a wonderfully Cornish mixture of eccentricity and charm. Here, Tom and Carly are serving afternoon tea to customers George and Dorothy.
Because I said to Mum, why do I need to go to college anyway? Why can't I push off for a year, see the world, go places?
Well, you could do, but college is important, Tom. You shouldn't knock it.
Don't see why not. I want to get out.
Lots of girls.
What's wrong with that? Can't wait.
Nothing at all, if you pick the right ones. Is there anything else you'd like?
Oh, no, thank you. Oh, the scones were delicious. Do you make them here?
No, they come from St. Ives every day.
We just come from there. Pretty windy road.
It's great. I do it on my bike in 15 minutes. 14 on a good day.
You must find it very quiet out of season.
I do. But there aren't the jobs in Cornwall. This one keeps going all year round, that's the reason. But Tom's off to college, aren't you, Tom?
Maybe. Haven't made my mind up yet. Okay, Carly. See you tomorrow.
I suppose this is a late holiday for you, if you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all. In fact, we've come back to find someone.
Our son.
When did he go missing?
It's a long story.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. But if I can help at all...
That's very kind. You see, he's been in a sort of hospital for years. Last year we know he was released, but he hasn't contacted us at all.
By hospital, do you mean a special hospital or a regional secure unit?
How do you know about those places?
At uni, I started reading law. I was particularly interested in mental health. Yes, I know. What am I doing here? Well, my parents are divorced and my dad went AWOL. In my second year, my mother got a serious infection and it left her rather disabled. She still needs, a part-time carer. I gave it up and came home. Been here ever since. This pays some of the bills. As I said, in Cornwall there aren't too many choices.
That was a very unselfish thing to do. It must be so boring for you.
You mean no one to talk to but Tom? He's okay, quite good and fun in his own way. Like most 17-year-old lads, all he wants to do is make waves and get laid. I can cope with that. How old is your son?
41.
If you don't mind me asking, what happened?
We married very young. And then there was a baby, our granddaughter. One day when he was looking after her, she wouldn't stop crying. Is that enough
course. And I suppose it was a case of diminished responsibility.
Correct. Detained until he was safe to be released.
But if I remember rightly, wouldn't he go into a hostel first?
He did, in Truro. And he behaved very well. So then he was allowed to find his own place. The trouble is, he didn't want us to know where.
We think he wants to make a clean break from everyone.
So really it's a case of following up clues.
Exactly.
In which case, a little local knowledge might be helpful. I have some contacts in the local police. They must know if he's on licence. Would you like me to ask around?
Well, that would be so kind. And we would be very pleased to pay any expenses.
I think we could do better than that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to try.
A few days later, Tom calls Carly.
Here, you're giving up the job.
Just for a few weeks.
So I don't get the chance then?
Tom, I'm old enough to be your mother.
No, you're not. You're 30. You told me so. And you're the only person who listens to me. I just know that first time, it'll be all right with you.
Tom, you're very sweet, but...
Please, Carly, just once. I really want you.
Tom, honestly, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, please, Carly. Please. Just the once. I'll be so gentle.
Tom, honestly.
See you tonight then. Mum's away.
Sitting outside the cafe at Melonsea Mill, Dorothy and Carly meet up.
Good to see you. How's Tom?
A little older, and hopefully wiser.
Understood.
Wish I did. I must have been mad. Was it that obvious?
Well, I just thought it was a possibility. Anyway, that's not why I suggested we meet, Carly. I was amazed that George told you about Simon. It hurts him so much. When the trial was over, I thought I'd lost them both.
Besides your granddaughter.
Ellie, she was so beautiful. She was only 6 months when it happened.
Dorothy, if I'm going to help, perhaps this is the time to tell me the whole story.
That's why I rang you. Simon's our only child. He was a very sensitive boy, quick to react. And when he got to be about 15, he began to suffer from depression. George is a scientist and very practical. There was clearly a problem, and he saw that Simon got help very early.
That's unusual. Good for him.
The psychiatrist told us that it was serious and it could be lifelong. But as he'd been diagnosed early, there was every chance that with medication and therapy he could lead a perfectly normal life. And at first, that's exactly what happened. He sailed through university and he got a very good degree in engineering. No depressive episodes at all. He met Martha at work, and it was love at first sight. Ellie was a honeymoon baby. And that's when it all started to go wrong.
How did he come to be with Ellie when she died?
Well, Martha was, and still is, very, very ambitious. She went back to work after only 3 months. They both managed to work out a way of life that allowed each to care for Ellie at different times in a working day. The only problem was that Simon wasn't as good with Ellie on his own.
And I suppose it all built up.
Carly, you're so quick. That's exactly what happened.
And I dare say Simon stopped his medication.
Of course. You really understand, don't you? One day, Ellie couldn't stop screaming. She was teething. And she was very overtired.
Oh, and poor Simon lost control.
There was no trial. Both psychiatrists agreed on the diagnosis. What I remember most was the humanity of the judge.
Bodmin Assizes, December 1999. What should have been the beginning of a wonderful new millennium, for Simon Fraser, the demons of his illness had other plans.
Simon Fraser, you may remain seated. I realize that now you've been in hospital for many months, you understand more clearly the terrible actions you undertook, which resulted in the death of your beloved baby daughter Ellie. These proceedings will be very painful to you, as they are for her mother and all members of her family. It is the most heartrending human tragedy. On the day in question, Ellie continued to cry, and put simply, you lost control and took her life by choking her. On the evidence of two very experienced psychiatrists, I am absolutely clear that at the time you were suffering from a disease of the mind, namely an acute reactive depression, so that your responsibility for your actions was substantially impaired. This is not a case for imprisonment. Then and now, you should continue to receive skilled psychiatric help in a secure setting. I make an order that you be detained under Section 37 of the Mental Health Act 1983 with a restriction order under Section 41. The practical effect of that order is that you will not be released from hospital until it is deemed that you no longer pose any risk. But I am sure that day will come in time. You may now go with the authorities back to the hospital.
Carly, where do we start?
I think the Roseland Peninsula. I don't have a specific address, but my inquiries suggest that he might be trying to build a new life in one of the villages. We just need to ask the right people.
Meanwhile, George heads out into the village searching for clues. He comes across a beautiful church, the Church of St. Justin Roseland, where the Reverend Barry Stone is vicar.
Good morning. Beautiful church, sir. How old is it?
About 700 years. I sometimes tease our American visitors that this is the new church. We think the original one was here 1,500 years ago.
And I heard there's a legend that Jesus came here as a boy.
Yes, that is so. His uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, was a trader, and we have traces of tin of that period in the area. So it's not too hard to imagine that he took the young Jesus on a trip as a young ship's carpenter. A legend, of course. There's been quite a lot written on the subject. I certainly would not rule it out. Are you on holiday?
Not exactly, no. My wife and I are trying to trace someone who we think may be living in the area.
A churchgoer?
Well, he was as a child. I mean, he went regularly with his mother, and that continued on and off when he grew up.
Your son, I take it?
Yes. I should have said that straight away.
Take a pew. Well, not literally. They are rather heavy. My guess is that this is very difficult for you. Am I right? Don't worry. People tell me everything. When did you last see him?
About 15 years ago. He was sectioned in hospital. And when he was released, he was insistent that we shouldn't contact him. We spoke to his treating psychiatrist in the community. He said that it was in Simon's best interest for the time being. Whenever we checked, we got the same answer.
That must be appalling for you both.
It is. We cannot abandon him for all time. No parent could.
Of course not. Although it may mean that you need some sort of intermediary when you do find him.
We thought of that. I came here on the off chance that someone may know him.
Give me all the details and I'll do what I can.
That's very kind of you. And I must tell you about this local girl, Carly, who is helping us.
Excellent.
Oh, and Vicar, you should know one other thing. I'm not a believer myself. I never have been.
Oh, that doesn't matter a bit. Nor, I think, at the moment to the Lord. The important thing is to find Simon.
Late November, Carly goes to St. Maud's surgery to visit Dr. Rosalie Jenner.
Thank you for seeing me so quickly.
We had a cancellation, but I hope I could have seen you anyway. We go back a long way, Carly.
We certainly do.
How's your mother?
Physically, you will know better than me. Mentally, she struggles.
Does she take her antidepressants?
Never misses. I insist.
We could increase the dosage a little.
I will book an appointment next week.
Problem?
You could say that. I'm pregnant, Rosie. Or should I call you doctor?
No, of course not. How long?
I think about 8 weeks.
And how do you feel about it?
Desperate.
Do you want to tell me about the father?
No, not now. Perhaps later.
I guess he doesn't know.
Correct. And it's going to stay that way.
Honey, maybe he has a right to know.
He would be mortified. And he's far too young to cope.
Oh, I see.
Rosie, I'm not asking you to help me lose it. I just want everything to be normal.
It will be. And this practice prides itself on its maternity care. I want to see you every step of the way.
I knew you would.
I haven't forgotten the time we shared that flat in Falmouth.
The false alarm?
As I remember, 2 of them.
Correct. But we both survived. Thank you, Rosie. Now, there is one other thing you can do. This may be a little more tricky. I'm trying to trace a possible new patient of yours. I don't know, of course, but I have the details. His parents are trying to trace him. Oh, it's a very sad story, and they are desperate, Rosie.
Carly, you know I can't disclose patients' details.
No, of course not. I just wanted you to tell me I was not wasting my time.
Well, maybe not. Varian is a very large village these days, and so is Tregony for that matter. Actually, there are lots of large villages in the area. Oh, Carly, don't you ever let me down.
Never, darling. Ever. Thank you, Rosie. When is my first scan?
12 weeks. I'll see you after that.
An evening of thunderstorms and extreme weather threatens the monthly meeting of the parish council at Varian Village Hall.
I must say, thank you to everyone who's turned out on a night like this.
Chair, I've had 4 apologies for absence. No, pardon me, 5. Fred rang just before I left. The Ford's up and he didn't want to risk it. Says he's very sorry because he feels really strongly about it.
Are we a quorum with 2?
I'm not sure. But as we're here for one big topic, I do think we should talk about it, even if we make no decisions. And we have 2 members of the public, I'm delighted to say. That doesn't happen every meeting. So, let's make a start. But Mary, no need to read the minutes. Just let's have that new letter from the county.
Dear Chairman, the County Council Rural Transport Subcommittee met on February 2nd to consider the request from your parish council for speed bumps from Varian running from the village on the way up to the Nair Hotel. It was the unanimous view of the subcommittee that you should provide a much stronger body of evidence before it can begin to evaluate the feasibility of such a proposal. And then there's a bit more blurb on the same lines, but that's the heart of it.
Typical.
Yes, it is. But I seem to remember that was the danger we talked about before we wrote to them. We've only had 2 complaints since last August.
Well, of course it drops off out of season. But it doesn't mean there isn't an issue. We all know that a handful of people still go through the village far too fast. And it's a miracle no one's been hurt. That's what Fred's been saying for years. But as I say, just typical of the county to fob us off like that.
Well, they're asking for evidence. I think we ought to concentrate on how we can do that.
Fair enough, Chairman. And I guess Fred would agree with that if he were here.
As I say, we're delighted to have the public here. May I ask you, sir, if you would like to contribute first? I mean, do you agree that there is a problem?
As it happens, I'm sure of it. I drive a van from Truro twice a week to the Nair to deliver fruit and fresh vegetables. There are stopping places, as you know, and most people are pretty sensible. But as I see it, the problem is going up the hill from the village. That's where the traffic needs to be slowed down. I mean, several times I've had to stop shop and flash my lights.
Thank you, sir. That's very helpful indeed.
Evidence?
Oh, exactly. I must ask your name.
Just call me Simon.
All right, Simon. Now, would you be prepared to write a letter to our secretary, which we could pass on to the county?
Well, yes, if you like.
We certainly would. Mary will have a word with you afterwards. Now, I wonder if our other visitor would like to say anything.
I don't live in the village, but I must say I do like the suggestion that Simon's just made. In fact, I think it's a very good idea.
Thank you.
And I will write as well.
Splendid. So, we did the right thing about going ahead tonight.
Certainly did, Chairman. Teach the county we knows what to do in Varian.
Thank you.
And I reckon Fred would be chuffed to bits.
Later that same evening, Carly and Simon are having a drink in the almost empty New Inn pub.
Now, did you pick me up or the other way round?
Don't be silly. I just thought we deserved a quick drink. Being public-spirited and so on, they were pleased as anything. I'm glad we did it.
So am I. Cheers.
Cheers. So what brings you to Varian?
Are you from social services?
Certainly not. Whatever gave you that idea?
I just wondered what you were doing there. I've never seen you in the village before.
How long have you lived here?
Just under a year.
Like it?
Very much. In fact, I want to stay.
So what's stopping you?
I can't explain in a few words. I mean, I went to the meeting as a way of trying to get to know people, to build roots, but I can never be sure it will last.
Okay, I will stop. None of my business.
Just take it that I'm trying to start again, okay?
Yes, of course.
New start, family, friends, everyone.
That must be so hard.
It is in the case of my family. I mean, I would love to see them again.
Perhaps they feel exactly the same way.
Maybe. No, almost certainly they do. But we're completely out of touch and that's it.
Okay. Like the other half?
I better not. It's getting worse out there, but it was lovely to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Till the next time then.
Great. See you. Good night.
Good night, Simon.
The following morning, Carly arranges to meet up with George at St. Justin Roseland Church.
Are you sure it was him?
Certain. Just a bit older than the photograph you gave me.
That was 15 years ago. Do you think he suspected you were looking for him?
I can't be sure about that, but I am sure he would meet me again if I contacted him.
How do you think he would react if you asked him to meet us?
Well, I wondered if perhaps that could be managed by accident. If you were both there, where to a place where we were already together. It is a risk, but it's better than an outright refusal to see you. What do you think?
I think it may be the best way forward. I could be there if you think it might help.
You mean here, in church?
No, I think there may well be other visitors, and that might alter the dynamics. But if you could contrive a meeting at St. Maure's Church, it might be ideal. It's a simple, large space, high up and open during the day. But there are fewer people who visit.
So, we have a plan? What do you think, Carly?
I like it. Let's think about when.
A few days later, Carly and Simon go for a walk along the headland and decide to visit the lovely little church at St. Maure's, high up on the cliffs.
That was a very good lunch.
You can always rely on the rising sun for fish and chips and mushy peas.
Delicious. But why did you drag me up here?
Well, it's a very good view.
Come on, Carly. I'm not a complete idiot. There has to be some ulterior motive, right?
Maybe.
Tell me. I promise I won't be angry.
I want you to meet some people who are very precious to you. Your parents, Simon.
You know, I think I knew from the beginning that you were up to something. I suppose you've been helping them. Well, it's all right. Honestly, I think you've done the right thing. Sooner or later, I knew it had to happen. It might as well be now.
Simon, my boy, it's been a long time.
You know, Carly, I think perhaps we can come back a little later.
Good idea. How about we come back in about half an hour?
My apologies, but is your name Simon Fraser?
Yes, why?
My name is Detective Inspector Walters. I regret to inform you that we are investigating the disappearance this morning of a 5-year-old girl from Tregony. You will understand, Mr. Fraser, why we're here.
Dear grief, don't you dare think for a moment that has anything to do with our son.
I'm not making any accusations, madam. I simply have a duty to investigate. Now, Mr. Fraser, would you mind coming with me? We have a car outside. I hope we can deal with this matter quite shortly.
It is December the 2nd, and the regional television studios in Plymouth are reporting the lunchtime news.
Good afternoon. This is Chris James with the lunchtime headlines. We're getting reports from Tregony that a 5-year-old girl went missing from her mother's car earlier this morning. Rachel Walker is at the scene. Rachel, what is the latest?
Chris, a full-scale search is now underway after the girl disappeared around 9 o'clock this morning. It seems her mother had just simply left her in the car to put some groceries in the house before planning to take the girl onto her nursery school. When she returned a couple of minutes later, the child had disappeared. I've been speaking to Inspector Walters, who's heading the inquiry.
I would like to stress that we are following all possible leads and not jumping to any conclusions. May I appeal to the public that if you have any information, please come forward as soon as possible. In particular, anyone who was in the main street here in Tregony at any time between 8:30 and 9:30 this morning.
Thank you, Inspector. Obviously, this is an ongoing investigation, and we will bring you the latest as it happens. For now, back to the studio.
Rachel, thank you. There will be more from the scene on our news programme at 6:30.
Later that same afternoon, Simon is taken in for questioning at Truro Police Station.
Just to confirm, Mr. Fraser, that you're not under arrest and you could leave at any time. Do you want to have a representative present?
Not at the moment.
Is it correct this morning you parked your car in Tregony High Street at about 9 a.m?
It is. I'd stopped to pick up a newspaper. I do it twice a week.
And you did not drive away immediately?
No, I was ahead of time. I read in the van for about 10 minutes.
And where did you go after that?
Straight to the hotel to deliver.
But you normally buy your paper on the way back, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So having a bit of time this morning, is it right that you got out of the van before driving off?
No, I did not. Why'd you ask?
This morning, 100 yards up the road near to the church, a little girl went missing from her mother's car.
That is nothing whatsoever to do with me. I didn't leave the van.
You see, your vehicle was seen parked outside the newsagent, but you were not seen inside it.
Hang on. What do you mean by that? Is your witness saying that they saw the van was empty or that they didn't notice if anyone was inside? Well, which is it?
I'm not here to answer your questions, Mr. Fraser, but it's fair to say that nobody saw you near the child.
Then why am I here?
Oh, it's hardly surprising, is it? A convicted child murderer 100 yards away from a missing girl at about the time she went missing?
That is absolutely outrageous. Do you know the circumstances in which my daughter died?
In outline, yes.
In that case, you will know that it had nothing whatsoever to do with abduction. What the hell are you dragging me into this for? Why associate me with this?
What time did you get to the hotel?
About 10 o'clock, as I'm sure you know anyway.
That was later than usual, was it not?
A few minutes, yes. That's because I was held up coming out of Verrian by two large lorries coming in opposite directions and stuck on the hill. Check it out if you don't believe me.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser. We will. That is all I need to know at the moment.
Carly, George and Dorothy arrive at the police station, hoping to find Simon.
Where has he gone?
Probably back home. Carly, do you know exactly where that is?
Not the precise address, but it's near the village of Verrian. I have his telephone number, but he's not answering.
Oh, George, you know what worries me is that his life may be in danger.
My dear, I don't think we should think like that.
Why not? This is exactly the sort of incident that causes idiots to lose control.
We have to trust the police. Carly, please keep ringing him. Leave him a message. Tell him we're staying and we love him and that we're here to stand by him. Anything we can do, we will. You'll know how to put it.
Of course I will, and I'll be in touch with Barry this evening. In the meantime, perhaps the best thing is for you to go back to your hotel, and I promise to ring the moment I have any news.
In desperation, Carly calls her friend Rosalie.
May I speak to Dr. Rosalie Jenner, please? It's Carly Simmons, one of her patients. No, I can't discuss it. Just tell her it's urgent.
Hello, Carly, what's wrong?
Oh, Rosie, it's an emergency.
Oh, what's happening?
No, it's not me. It's your patient, Simon Fraser. I've got to know him, and I'm very worried about his mental state. He has been falsely accused of taking a child, and I think you should see him as soon as possible.
How much do you know about him?
Everything. I know why he was detained and when he was released, and roughly where is he living now. I'm trying to help him be reconciled with his parents, and that had just happened when the police came.
Came where?
To St. Maude's Parish Church. That's where they met. Barry the vicar was there as well.
Oh, he's a good man. But do you realise that Simon Fraser falls under the mental health community team?
Well, that's exactly why I want you to see him first. If he needed to be referred, you're the best person to do it.
Well, I will see him today, but I'm still not clear how far you're involved.
Rosie, that can wait, but thank you so much.
Book the appointment now. Later I want to see you as well, just to check up that all is well.
Of course, yes. Thank you, Rosie.
Take care, Carly, and I mean that.
Understood.
Simon decides it's in his best interest to visit the surgery and speak to Dr. Jenner.
Come and sit down, Mr. Fraser.
You know why I've come?
Carly Simmons spoke to me briefly. I gather you've got to know her.
Yes. She's a very lovely person and surprisingly intelligent.
She certainly is. No doubt she's told you that we were students together. She was quite outstanding. Now, please tell me in your own words exactly what happened, and then we can take it from there.
By which you mean a formal mental health assessment, right? No worries. I know how the system works.
Mr. Fraser, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can refer you to your community mental health team if I feel that you need the help.
You do have my hospital records, don't you? I was told that you would be put fully in the picture.
Don't worry. I have the reports which were in use at your trial and the more recent psychiatric reports at the time of your last mental health tribunal. So yes, I appreciate your diagnosis and also the very considerable progress you've made. Anyway, shall we go back to what happened yesterday?
When I was finally discharged from hospital, I was lucky enough to get a simple delivery job, taking fruit and vegetables from Truro to the hotels and pubs. Twice a week I go to the Nair Hotel through Tregony and Verrian. On the way back, I usually stop for a paper for a few minutes before moving on. It's an early start and I welcome a break. Yesterday, I was early leaving Truro and was making good time, and I thought I'd take a break on the way there. I stopped and bought a paper, read in the van for about 10 minutes, and then completed my trip onto the Nair.
On time?
Well, I would have been, but you know what the road is like in Verrion. Going out of the village, I came up behind 2 lorries going in opposite directions, absolutely head to head. It was a classic situation of need for one of them to reverse and let the other one through. But, surprise, surprise, both of them were being completely pig-headed about it, and neither would move it. It just took some time to sort things out.
How long?
About 7 or 8 minutes. It made me late getting to the hotel because you can't speed on that section, it's too dangerous.
So what are the police saying?
That morning, further up the hill in Tregony, a young child went missing from a parked car.
Well, did you see the car as you drove down into the village?
Not at all.
So what exactly is the accusation?
That somehow I must have turned round, snatched the child, and for some completely unknown reason disposed of it somewhere. I mean, it's complete nonsense.
Well, it certainly sounds very odd to me.
Odd? Is that what you call it? The whole thing is based on the oldest lie in the book, give a dog a bad name. Take a very depressed young father who killed his baby and never trust him again. It makes me so angry and so completely helpless.
Mr. Fraser, let's slow down and take this carefully. You're still taking a small dose of antidepressants, are you not?
Yes, citalopram, 10 milligrams daily.
Which you've been on now for over 2 years.
I have.
After the police had finished questioning you, how long did you spend with your parents?
Not long enough. I think that Carly and Barry hoped that might have a quiet meal with them whilst they left us to it, to catch up, as it were. But when I left the police station, I was very wound up, and we only spent a few minutes together before going home.
Did you go straight back?
No, I went to a beach to be on my own and take stock.
And how long did you spend there?
Hours. I mean, I only got back sometime after 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I didn't sleep at all.
Well, let's go back to the beach. Tell me exactly how you felt.
Absolutely gutted. I mean, the utter unfairness of it. Why should anyone assume I had anything whatsoever to do with a crime like that, assuming it was a crime? I remember so many people saying exactly the same thing when I was in hospital. Once you've got a record, no one on the outside will ever believe you.
Try to spell it out even more. Exactly how you were feeling.
No words for it. Well, incandescent, devastated, hurt, and absolutely bloody furious.
And feeling as you did, what exactly did you want to do about it?
That's impossible to say. I mean, I was walking up and down, shouting in the wind and so on, but there was nobody there.
And if there had been, if someone had confronted you and told you that the police were simply doing their duty, how do you think you would have reacted?
Well, I expect I would have sounded off like this, but I wouldn't have hit them. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, why wouldn't you have hit them? Why not?
Because that would have been completely pointless.
All right. You got home and you didn't sleep. Now this morning, did you take your medication?
No. I'm afraid I forgot. I will do so, of course, tomorrow.
And when you got up this morning and you were thinking about things, tell me about your state of mind.
Well, I'd calmed down, but I was still very angry, and of course, I still am, still will be until it's over.
Do you feel that you need some further help?
You mean more pills? More medication?
Well, not only that. You had a very good relationship with your treating psychiatrist. It would be possible to get in touch with him and ask him to see you in an outpatient's clinic, and I would be perfectly happy to arrange that.
Obviously, if you thought that was necessary, I would go along with it, but are you really saying that you think I need to be detained?
No, I'm certainly not saying that. I think you've had a very bad shock, and that it would be wise to increase your medication a little for a couple of months, and then we can reduce it when things have calmed down. But I would need to put the team in the picture.
So you don't think I need further psychiatric help at this moment?
No, I don't. I think that, understandably, you're very upset, but you seem to me to be rational and clear, and you do have control. I don't think it's very likely that you're going to do anything foolish. All that, of course, is on the basis that you continue to take your medication without fail. If you don't, then you understand there is a risk of a return of your original depressed state.
I do understand. Thank you for seeing me.
Mr. Fraser, it is also in your interest to meet up with your parents and just try to live through a difficult period as sensibly and calmly as possible.
I will do.
It isn't long before Detective Inspector Walters receives a telephone call from the Chief Constable in Plymouth.
Inspector Walters, I've had the national media banging on my office and screaming down the phone. What the hell's going on? There is some suggestion of a convicted killer in the immediate area. Is that true?
Well, yes, sir. There was a man released from a psychiatric unit some time ago for strangling his crying baby.
Why isn't he banged up?
Well, sir, we have questioned him, but unfortunately, we have insufficient evidence to arrest him.
No witnesses?
Afraid not, sir.
What about his account of his movements?
We are checking it out, sir, but so far, nothing.
Right. Okay. But, Inspector, understand this. If it turns out that we have released a convicted murderer who has done it again, my head will be on the block, and you'll be returning to traffic. That's if you're lucky. Do I make myself plain?
Oh, absolutely, sir. Understood.
Right. Well, get on with it, man. Pronto. Whatever is necessary.
Sir.
Carly and Simon meet up at the cafe at Melonsey Mill.
I'm glad you managed to see the doctor.
She's very good. Speaks fondly of you. But the whole thing is just dreadful. They're bound to pull me in again.
Simon, just let's think about this. If the police had any reason to have detained you, they would have done it. You weren't arrested. You weren't even questioned under caution. With luck, this storm will calm down and we can all get back to normal.
I don't see it, Carly. It's just a temporary reprieve. The team will have me in and it's back to endless assessments.
Can you tell me about that?
When I was first detained, I know now that I was very ill, traumatised, suicidal, utterly without any hope. It took months before they thought I was well enough to see the lawyers my parents had found for me and give them any instructions. Endless assessments, constant monitoring. Gradually, things got better, and what then dominated me was obviously what I'd done to Ellie and, of course, to Martha, my parents, anyone who knew me.
What happened to Martha?
I never saw her again. I don't even know if she was at the trial. I couldn't see into the public gallery. Mum said that her firm had been wonderful, and eventually she'd moved abroad with a new position. Hopefully she's found someone and has a new family. That's what I pray anyway. The one thought that keeps me going.
Oh, I do understand, Simon. But whatever you did, you were very unwell and now you've recovered. And it's got to stay that way. One thing I do realise is that you've learnt to trust your team, right?
Absolutely. They're very supportive, especially my psychiatrist.
Do you know, Simon, that was my ambition after I started university. Give up law and go for medicine, and eventually work in mental health. I was told that psychiatry is still regarded as a very unusual option. But for me, the question why is endlessly fascinating.
Their problem is that so often they have to cope with recurring symptoms. It's something deep down that still bothers me, whether it might all come back. But yes, inside I did see people with massive issues get better, even some with very serious delusions.
For instance?
Well, there was an older man, Tommy, whom we used to call a professor. I think he'd once been a priest and had taught religion somewhere in the distant past. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia after he'd developed extraordinary delusions. He saw fabled religious figures everywhere and he spent long periods talking to them. Now, he never got rid of all of them, but the doctors got him to a stage where they no longer dominated his life, and eventually he was released.
Now, what would interest me about him is whether all his delusions were paranoid.
How do you mean?
Well, there has to be a line between genuine religious belief and off-the-wall delusions. How do the doctors decide?
Good question. I'm sure they can. Probably the manic nature of their behaviour.
What about you? Does faith mean anything?
It did once. Now, well, you could say I've put it to one side. More like my dad, I suppose, but I would never run down anyone's beliefs.
But your mother's still a believer.
Oh, yes, very much so. She would probably say that she prays for all of us. Bless her.
That's nice. Good for her. I wish sometimes someone would pray for me.
You need it that much, Carly?
Oh, yes. I need all the help I can get. Rather a lot on my plate at the moment.
At Seymour's surgery, Dr. Jenner is visited by Detective Inspector Walters.
You said it was urgent, Inspector.
Well, it could hardly be more serious, Doctor. I understand that Simon Fraser is a patient of yours,
Yes, he is.
and that you're responsible for supervising him in the community.
Well, not exactly. I'm the general practitioner liaising with his community team.
When did you last see him?
I don't think I like the tone of your question, Inspector.
This is no time for pussyfooting, Doctor. I'm investigating a missing child, presumed murdered, and your patient is the prime suspect. So please answer my question.
Just a moment. You said suspect. Is he in custody?
Well, not at the moment. And frankly, I don't have a basis to detain him, so far. But it's only a matter of time.
Sorry, I don't follow. You say he is a suspect, but you haven't found evidence of his involvement. In that case, I'm not sure I can help you at all, quite apart from the issues of patient confidentiality.
Doctor, you bloody well need to understand the position. Simon Fraser, on his own admission, was 100 yards away from the point where the child went missing. That is an incredible coincidence. We have every reason to suppose that he must be involved. It isn't as if a village is littered with convicted murderers. So the sooner you start helping me, the better. Or, putting it another way, you're going to be in serious trouble if you don't.
Inspector Walters, do you appreciate what patient confidentiality means? It is clear to me that you do not. So please refrain from trying to browbeat me. I resent it and you have no right to do it.
I have every right if you've not been doing your job, Doctor.
And what do you mean by that?
When did you last see Fraser?
I do not propose to answer your question, but I will say this much. From the time he has been released in the community, which you know well is over 2 years, there has been absolutely no reason to suspect any return to the condition which caused him to be detained. And you can check that with the other members of the team.
Sorry, Doctor, that won't do. It's not just his mental condition that I want to know about. I need to know exactly what contacts he has been having with children. And that means any cozy talks you've been having with him in your surgery. And before you kick off, you should realize that this is information which will enable me to do my job and protect the community. So if you keep it to yourself, you could be obstructing the course of justice.
I think that this is where this conversation should end. I suggest, Inspector, that you do your job and you leave me to do mine.
Now who is being offensive? You doctors make me sick. Sitting in your little ivory towers, so keen on the interests of your patient that the rest of the community can go hang. I call that bloody irresponsible.
Right. The sooner you leave here, Inspector, the better.
I want to know whether any of your chats show any association of any kind with young children.
I have told you already that the patient is well. But for the record, the team will confirm that nothing in his behavior has given rise to any kind of social concern. Now please leave.
On my way, Doctor. But you need to understand something. What the community would think of anyone, whoever they are, protecting a murderer. I know this community inside out. Cornish people can be very generous when it comes to giving someone a chance. But the last thing they will put up is professionals letting them down and putting their families at risk. Do you realize what the risk is?
What do you mean?
That they will take the law into their own hands. And do you know what, Doctor? Who could blame them? So if I don't do my job, and you don't do your job, and we put this man back where he belongs, there will be huge repercussions. Just chew that over, will you? Being a doctor is not a badge of purity.
Get out of my surgery.
The evening regional television studios are reporting from outside Simon Fraser's cottage in Veryan.
More now from the desperate search for the missing child in Tregony. We understand that a local man was detained yesterday afternoon for questioning, but he has since been released. Our reporter, Rachel Walker, has been in the village all day. Rachel, is that right?
Chris, as you said yesterday, I understand a man was brought in for questioning, but he has since been released. I have with me a member of the Veryan Parish Council, Mr. Dennis Thompson. Mr. Thompson, what effect do you think this search is having on the local community?
To be honest, fear and a great deal of anger.
And why is that?
Because until the offender is caught, everyone in the area will be on edge. It could be their child next, and that's a very frightening prospect.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Rachel. Now on the line from Plymouth is the Vicar of St Justin Roseland, the Reverend Barry Stone. I understand, sir, that you have been on a 2-day church conference, but you've decided to leave immediately and go back home?
That is quite right.
Because I believe you know the mother and the little girl who is missing?
Yes, I do, and all of us will be praying tonight that she is found as soon as possible.
Reverend, you are rushing back. Is one of your fears that the feelings will be running high in the community?
Yes, that's exactly what I think. And that's why I want to take this opportunity to call for calm and to let justice take its course. The last thing we want is people taking the law into their own hands.
Indeed not. Thank you, sir. We're very grateful for your time.
Concerned for her friend, Rosalie calls Carly before she heads off to Simon's cottage.
Carly, how is he?
I can't get hold of him.
Forgive me for asking, but how close are you?
Well, we haven't started a relationship. Not exactly the right time, is it? But yes, I like him a great deal.
You must let me know if you have any concerns. I need to be sure that he is still taking his medication.
Are his mental health team aware?
Of course, as I told him, I had to let them know, but they're happy to leave it to me for the time being. I only hope we've got it right. If not, I'm going to be in a very difficult position.
Back at the scene in Veryan, the villagers are angry and have come to demonstrate outside the cottage.
Can you hear that? We've been advised by the police to come back about 80 yards from an address in the village. So I can't tell you exactly how many people are there, but it's obvious that feelings are running completely out of control.
Rachel, take care. But I understand that you have someone who knows the area and perhaps can put us in the picture?
That's right, Chris. I'll call her Joan, though that's not her real name. Joan, can you help our viewers? What is going on here?
Well, I just want to try and explain just why this is such a dangerous situation. We all have to live by the law, which means that basically everyone, whatever their circumstances, is presumed to be innocent, right? But this is mob justice, and that is not how we do things in Cornwall, and it's vital that someone speaks out. So all this has got to stop.
What's causing you the most concern?
Well, I'm worried that a totally innocent person might be so frightened that they might be tempted to harm themselves.
Why do you say that?
We can't answer that question exactly, but everyone has a breaking point, don't they?
Joan, thank you. I think we better end it there, Chris.
Rachel, please. From all of us, both of you, just get out of the way and back to the van, as quick as you can.
Will do.
It is now very late and dark, and Carly is on the phone to Rosalie as she heads out to the cliffs in search for Simon.
Rosie, Carly here, I can't find him. There was a mob outside his home and they were banging on the door. I think he may have gone back to the cliffs near the Nair to work. I'm going to go and try and find him. I'm worried, Rosie, really worried. I just thought I should let you know. Simon! Simon!
Go away, Carly.
No chance.
You must. I don't want you here. I don't want anybody here. Just leave me.
I can't do that, Simon.
Why not? It's my life, and it's over. Just leave me alone.
Leave you to do something stupid. I can't do that, Simon. You know I can't. I want to help you.
It's no good, Carly. Nobody can help me now. It's all too late. You know I killed my daughter. Why not that little girl? Everyone thinks I killed her. Everyone.
I don't. Not for a moment. Of course you didn't kill her. We don't even know she's dead.
That's not what the village think. Not what anyone thinks. They all know it was me. All of them.
Simon, I know that's not true. And even if it were true, there would be people to help you.
Who?
Well, the people who looked after you in hospital. They don't go away, Simon. Even if you have done something bad, they would still be there for you, and so would I.
Are you saying if I killed that little girl, you'd still want to see me? Why would you want to do that, Carly? I mean, why? Why would you want to do that?
Because if you had done that, Simon, I know you would have been very unwell again. And that means you need help. I wouldn't run away.
How long would you stay, Carly?
As long as it takes. Simon, I can't climb any higher. It's up to you now. Come on down, please, Simon. Come back. Whatever it takes, I will support you. I promise, always.
What's that? I heard a car.
The only person who knows I'm here is Dr. Jenner.
Yes, I can see her. What the hell? There's a police officer with her. That's it. I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry, Carly.
Stop! Mr. Fraser, stop! There's no need. We found the girl. She's okay. Honestly, she's alive and she's well.
What do you mean? It's just a bloody trick. You think you can talk me down?
It's not a trick, Simon. It's true. It was all a dispute about custody. Her father took her away that day. You've done nothing wrong.
Father's owned up and brought her back. And Dr. Jenner has seen her, haven't you? Doctor checked her over.
I haven't. She's fine. That's the truth, Simon. She's fine. That's why you need to come down. Slowly.
Will I be locked up?
No need, Mr. Fraser. You've done nothing wrong.
I just want you to see the team. But no one is going to put you away. I can promise you that. No one. Come along, you two. Let's sort this out. Thank you, Inspector. Not your fault either.
Thank you, Doctor. Good of you to say that.
9 months have now passed, and it is late summer 2016, and Carly goes to see her friend Rosalie at St. Maur's surgery.
Come in, Carly. How are you feeling?
A bit tired, but otherwise absolutely fine.
And the baby?
Edward, he's blooming. He's with the practice nurse now, and Simon.
Simon?
Rosie, we've been together now for 3 months. He was present at the birth. I thought you knew.
Well, I know you are together, but forgive me, is he actually living with you now?
You mean living in the same place as the baby?
Yes, Carly, I do.
Are you saying that he shouldn't be, that Simon is likely to lose it again? Because nothing could be further from the truth.
I just need to know that you thought this through.
Rosie, let's be frank with each other. As I understand it, when Simon killed Ellie, he was in the grip of a major depressive illness. And in that serious state, he could not cope with a crying baby. That is right, isn't it?
Absolutely. But the truth is that all babies cry, and sometimes for long periods, and that inevitably can be very stressful.
Of course. Don't say I haven't noticed, but Simon is over the moon with Edward. And anyway, he never has to cope with him on his own. I realise that is the first thing the community team would want to know. So as far as I know, they do. So where is the risk, Rosie? Be straight with me.
Well, put like that, honey, I agree. It is just that I need to be fully in the picture.
Well, then that's my fault for not telling you before. I should have done. But I know it still leaves questions. Public perception, which we shall cope with together, and of course his parents. They are bound to have concerns, and I fully appreciate that. But the way I see it is that I'm in a very good position to help Simon, every bit as much as he helps me.
Meaning?
Meaning that I love him, Rosie, totally and utterly. I feel we have the sort of relationship where we can succeed together, and that I can deal with it. Hill's illness, if it starts to recur. Pick up the signs, an extra pair of eyes. In a better position than even you and the team.
Right, so that only leaves his parents.
I'm seeing them this afternoon.
Good luck. And keep me right up to date. The slightest cause for concern. Promise?
I promise.
Later that afternoon, Carly and baby Edward are having tea with George and Dorothy back at Mellonsey Mill.
You're looking so well, Carly.
Thank you. Edward is a very good baby. Do you know he's sleeping now for 5 hours most nights?
Oh, that is good.
And Simon is being a brilliant dad.
Yes, tell us more.
Changing nappies, preparing feeds. We share everything together. So you don't have to worry, honestly.
Carly, you've done so much for Simon. We think of you as our daughter, so we hesitate to mention our worries, or should I say our concerns about Simon.
But you should. I understand perfectly what you mean. I was talking to Dr. Jenner this morning and explaining that Simon and I are very happy together, and that he is doing well, really well. And I never expect him to have to look after Edward on his own.
That's wonderful to hear. Isn't it, Dorothy?
I'm so relieved.
Obviously, that's why we wanted to talk today.
But not the only reason. Go on, George.
Carly, do you remember when we first met in that deserted cafe having tea? When you told us about your mother and how you'd given up college to look after her? How is she now, by the way?
Physically, she is much the same. The really good news is her increased care package. We see her most days and she adores the baby.
We were both struck by the fact that you had given up everything to help her, just when your studies were going so well.
Carly, you may think this is very presumptuous, but we've been in touch with your old tutor, and he said that you were one of the brightest students he'd ever known.
And that you would have got a first-class degree and certainly got to the top of whatever career you had.
Well, that was a long time ago. Now I have Simon and Edward, and my life is very fulfilled.
Of course. But Dorothy and I want you to know that, as I understand it, you could in your own time go back.
What do you mean?
Well, your tutor wants to help you. He's in quite a senior position now. I don't mean go back immediately, of course not. But these days, the ideas of students with children, even living on campus, isn't cloud cuckoo land. It can happen.
Not often, surely.
But you wouldn't have to. What's the word for it? Oh, yes. George and I have decided to downsize. Sell our house in Florida and buy a small bungalow in Cornwall. Be here for you both.
Which will leave quite a large capital sum.
It certainly will. Enough to buy you reasonable accommodation in a university city. Your university. And give Simon a chance to seek a small engineering post, if he's lucky. And before you ask, we would want to be near enough to help cope with a small child. And we would help with the childcare.
I'm completely poleaxed. Why would you want to do all that?
Because you saved our son's life. I don't just mean up on the cliffs. And because I don't believe in coincidence anymore.
You've lost me.
That's all the fault of your friend Barry. Don't worry, I'll explain another time. But what do you think?
Before you answer, we should tell you that we have already talked to Simon. And he thinks it's wonderful, if you wanted it. Anyway, there it is.
Up till now, I've never believed in miracles, which is rather foolish for a daughter of Cornwall. Over the years, we've managed more than our fair share. Bless you both.
A year passes. It is now the summer of 2017, and Carly and Simon have moved forward with their lives. We are at the morning service in St. Justin Roseland Church, where baby Edward has just been baptised.
If you had told me last year that I'd be in a pulpit in St. Justin Roseland preaching a sermon, I would not have believed you. Nor would anybody else. I have spent my entire working life as a scientist. And science and faith seem to me to be completely irrelevant to my job, my life, to everything. Well, it's a long story. But one afternoon I got into a long discussion with Barry. The truth is, he did most of the talking. He was on his pet subject. For example, if you like, faith, he says. And I bet you've all heard him say this. Faith is like the strands of a rope. He said to me, it's not an original thought, George, but it does make a lot of sense. The reason why we or some of us believe depends on a whole variety of reasons. For example, personal experience, the feeling or conviction that our lives are not random. Even if we have completely random and desperate tragedies within them. And then the selfless lives of others. Some of our Cornish saints, for example, like St. Petroc or St. Just. Men whose way of life inspired so many others. And then paranormal or even ghostly experiences. And then unexpected and unexplained acts of healing. They do happen. Ask any experienced GP. Recoveries which simply can't be totally explained. Now those are just a few of the threads Barry talked about. Any single one of them may not be nearly enough to bear the weight. The rope may break. But put them all together and it can take the strain. Easily. Any weight, any load, always. Being a scientist, I thought I saw a flaw. There's been a lot of scientific investigation of paranormal events. Some of them have a perfectly straightforward explanation. And the fact that we can't account for all of them doesn't prove anything. It may simply just mean that we haven't found the answer. Now that is when Barry surprised me. And I'm going to surprise him, because I want him to tell you this morning what he told me. Remember? A true story, you said, Barry.
Well, it certainly is true. I can say that for certain. Fred told everybody, all his life. I think it went to the heart of his faith. Fred Barwood, in middle age, became a Church of England vicar in Bedford, before becoming the vicar of Hordle. That's a village in South Hampshire, not far from the New Forest. But when Fred was a young man, he went on honeymoon in an Austin 7, now a famous classic car, and you still see a few of them on the roads today. Then, when he was staying at their honeymoon hotel, out of the blue, he and his young bride received a letter from a maiden aunt. Dear Fred, last night I had a terrible dream. I dreamt that a wheel was loose on your car. I fear a terrible accident is going to happen. And Fred went outside and he found the wheel nuts had worked loose on one of the wheels. If he hadn't checked, there was every chance they would both have been killed. And Fred was a scientist, and he could see no possible explanation. none other than a spiritual one. A maiden aunt, mind. Not someone who could possibly have known that in advance.
And I have thought about that true story. It is only one of the strands. That evening, I was sitting outside this beautiful church, and suddenly I felt a hand on my shoulder. A firm, young hand. And then I felt an incredible sense of peace and certainty. There was no one there. No one that I could see. Now, the scientist in me would say I was imagining it. But I know what I felt. So now I think that Barry's rope is strong enough for me also, which is why I'm talking this morning. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, George. There have been many small miracles here over hundreds of years, triumphs of love over adversity. And some of us think this morning celebrates another. Whatever your religious beliefs, and even if you have none at all, this is a time of joy. We Cornish are a spiritual people, and we could all give thanks in our own way.
That concludes our play for this evening. From Radio Cornwall, we wish you all a good night and hope you tune in again soon.